WMMC HD3 Detroit, KMPS HD3 Seattle, WBMX HD3 Boston.
And on AOL Radio
and Yahoo Launchcast. Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky.
Back to Behind the Paranormal
with Paul and Ben Eno.
Call now
248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com.
Believe.
Are all ghosts the same? What does the idea of ancient aliens do to the modern idea of God? And what were Ben and I doing in that documentary?
Hey there, and welcome to the 468th broadcast of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. I'm Ben, and those extremely diverse questions came from my co-host and partner in the paranormal, my dad. So this evening, we offer you an open-line show in a no-doubt vain attempt to catch up on our emails. And if you'd like to comment on any of them or have a question of your own, call us at 248-545-7685. Again, that is 248-545-7685.
Okay, so let's hop to it. We moved some to the front of the line. We don't like to do that, but this weekend had the debut of this new Warner Brothers film, The Conjuring. And a lot of people wrote in to comment on our presence in the documentary that accompanied the film, so I thought we'd better get that out of the way right now. This one is from Jim in Lorain, Ohio.
Alrighty, so Jim writes to us, "Hi guys, I'm a longtime fan, and it was so cool to see you in the Conjuring video. I just played it on YouTube and did not expect to see you. What do you think of the movie? Paul, I know you worked with the Warrens. Did you work on that case? Keep up the cool work, and Ben, you are growing up." Well, I'd hope so.
Yeah,
I don't want to.
It'd be really strange if you were still like
16,
no beard.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, let's get this over with. The Conjuring film, of course, everybody probably knows about it. Debuted on Friday, and this video is on various media. I don't really understand it. YouTube, of course, and all this business. Ben could explain it. What do you think of the movie? Well, we didn't see the movie. We didn't get any kind of preview of it or anything. I
literally just got asked to go see it with some friends, and
maybe you should go see it so you can.
No, no plausible deniability.
Well, I don't know. Well, suit yourself, but I had to go see. People were asking about The Exorcist for 2 years before I actually saw it.
Or what about that whole thing with the Blair Witch Project?
Oh my gosh! Well, that's another story
for another day. But anyway.
So I can't answer the first question, Jim. Paul, I know you worked with the Warrens. Did you work on that case? Well, I'll be honest with you, Jim, and I'll get this out of the way, too. My relationship with the Warrens was a very close personal one. They were like a second family to me. And then this is the period 1972 to 1978 when we kind of drifted apart over theory and method. They kind of stuck to this, what I consider an older view that most people do stick to, weird voices crying in the wilderness, and but it was a very interesting relationship. On the other hand, there was a lot of things I questioned, and of course that was one of the reasons we kind of drifted apart. But it was on good terms, and I was very sorry to hear that Ed translated several years ago. And I have nothing but good feeling for Lorraine, who was one of the sweetest people I've ever met. Did I work on that case? No, I did not. I really. Now again, this was supposedly in 1971. This case occurred, and ironically, I've heard that it occurred in Harrisville, Rhode Island, which is just a few miles from where we live. But I was not really familiar with whatever case it was. Now, of course, it's difficult to tell from the film because it's all fictionalized, and who knows. But I never heard them, as far as I can remember. Maybe they did, but I just don't remember. The Warrens mentioned to me that there had ever been a case where they had not been able to deal with it, or Lorraine wouldn't go back, and I get that she might have done, but I just don't remember any mention of that. So coming in like a year after this occurred, I would have thought I would have heard about it, but who knows? And they worked on a lot of different cases. So I just wasn't familiar with this case. Okay, keep up the cool work. Ben, you are growing up. Well, that's a good thing. Well, thank you for writing, Jim.
Better than growing down.
Yeah, and there were a lot of emails we're not going to read on this subject. These pretty much answered.
That was the gist of it.
The question. However, here's another one. This is from Richard in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Okay, Richard writes to us. Hi, guys. I saw The Conjuring on Friday, and it was enough to make me give up ghost hunting.
Good.
Do you know anything about the real case behind the movie, and have you ever had a case like that? Do you have cases where you would never go back to the house? What do you do if you actually live in a house like that? What became of the family?
I'm sorry, but I didn't give you a chance to. Because you wouldn't have been in a position to answer them. Well, anyway.
No.
Do you know anything about the real case? Well, no, I already answered that. Have you ever had a case like that?
Well, if we didn't know what the case was, then how could we say if we know what's something like it?
Seeing the movie. I mean, I have some idea. Obviously, there are clips of it in the documentary and all this business.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I certainly not. These things are
well, sometimes,
Hollywoodized.
they're Hollywood tends to take a story and run with it.
Yeah.
Because they say based on a true story, but that's extremely, extremely loosely based.
Exactly.
I mean, the house may have the same name. Then they'll say, "Oh, it's based on it."
Mm-hmm.
It's I've learned a lot in my media history courses where they say, "Yeah, it's based on a true story," and then it's like, based. Based doesn't mean that it is the actual story.
That could mean just the vaguest idea.
Oh,
that
yeah.
came from the story. I'm thinking too of movies like Reanimator, which was supposedly based on our distant cousin H.P. Lovecraft's story, Herbert West Reanimator. Yeah. Not one of his best stories, but the film is so loosely based on it that Lovecraft would have been horrified, and there's practically no relationship between what was actually in the story. Same thing with the Dunwich Horror.
Never actually saw that one.
That was I don't know. I suppose I might call it a B movie, but one of his greatest stories, and I didn't see any relationship between the movie and the story. But again, not being familiar with the case, I really couldn't say. However, the dramatics, the horror shots, and things like this. Naturally, you can't expect Hollywood to do scientifically accurate, if there is any such thing,
or at least tell the truth.
Yeah, exactly. But or what is the truth? I don't know. But I just have never had a case kind of like that. The closest one I had was a poltergeist case in '75 in New Haven, Connecticut. That was probably one of the craziest things I ever saw. But it was obviously people weren't doing this stuff and this thing. But I have seen people thrown across the room. The little girl in the 1974 Bridgeport poltergeist case, on which I was working with the Warrens, was thrown across the room on several occasions. As a matter of fact, I remember standing behind her chair in the kitchen, very small house. She was in the chair. I was behind the chair. The chair rose up by itself. I grabbed it and pushed it back down, and it was as though I felt something let go. Now, again, we've speculated on these things many times about what causes this. Is it the entities causing this? One thing I don't believe is that this is mad, dead people. I think in every case I've ever seen where this is going on, it's been okay. Are we?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, I
You're
couldn't.
making esoteric signals
No,
there.
I couldn't do math for a second.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing you're
Yeah, because what's 9 minus 13? For some reason, I thought 3, and then I was like, no, wait, 2, and then I said 4. So 4.
Well, moving right along, what we were dealing with here was there are real poltergeist phenomena, although I don't see the reasons behind them that everybody else in the documentary saw. The documentary, by the way, is called The Devil's Hour, and
so
it is
Satan's fault.
YouTube and all this.
YouTube,
YouTube, whatever. YouTube, and it's around, so you can check it out. But I don't agree, and Ben and I don't agree with most people in this field about this kind of thing. And having been there and seen it, I just don't interpret it the way the Warrens did, or probably still do. So, in any case, you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Banging salsa together here. All right. So I have inner-wasting cases like that, and my memory goes back to possession cases that I dealt with while a seminary student and after. There were some pretty hairy moments on that. I also have different theories about that. I don't think the devil is involved here in the strictest popular sense of the term. We're dealing again with a race of parasitical entities who prey upon our energy. And maybe there is some thought among, I suppose, paranormal researchers, if you want to call it, that these beings farm the human race and always have. Just like when you go out and, like when we went out making the documentary in the woods, footage that was not in the documentary, getting eaten alive by mosquitoes.
Oh, that was pretty bad.
And they're around, and you may just walk into it, or it may be deliberate. I don't know mosquitoes, but it's not a pleasant situation. And this is, I think, what's essentially the same principle what's going on in these cases. But I've never seen a case as in the movie or in the Exorcist film either. But I mean, there are some that approximate some of the things that go on, and I have explanations, I believe, for those, and they're not what the other people think they are.
Well, unless you want to really, really, really get esoteric with it and say, well, somewhere, somewhen, these cases have happened.
Well, that's true, but again, what does that mean? I mean, there are definitely, at least according to physics, worlds in which the laws of physics are different. And again, as we always say, if they can be conceived of, they exist. But someone actually asked a question about this. If something is possible, are we when we are apprehending it in the ultimate universe with our imaginations and our minds here, are we interpreting it correctly? For example, Charles Schultz of the great Peanuts cartoons, the great cartoonist, was talking about the Great Pumpkin all the time. Everybody gets a big kick out of that. And we've said on one of our Halloween shows that at some point there must have been some creature at some point in the multiverse where there was something approximating that Great Pumpkin kind of figure, or Schultz never would have been able to imagine it, never would have been able to apprehend it. But does that mean there actually is a pumpkin flying through the air bringing toys to all the children? You know, it may have been an interpretation in his deep subconscious when he apprehended this, and he turned it into something fun. Now, this is weird stuff, but I mean, there are all kinds of things going on here. So in any case, we will finish answering Richard's questions here, or trying to, after our break, and you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on CBS News Sky Radio. Stick with us.
Enlighten, empower, enrich. This is CBS Radio's The New Sky.
New horizons, no boundaries.
Promise you the world again, and everything within my hands, all the riches one could dream, they will come from me. I hope that you could understand that this is not what I had planned. Please don't will turn around. 'Cause I need more time, just a few more months and we'll be fine. So say what's on your mind, 'cause I can't figure out just what's inside. I hope that you could understand this is not what I had planned. Please don't worry now, it will turn around. 'Cause I need more time, just a few more months and we'll be fine. So say what's on your mind, 'cause I can't figure out just what's
Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky.
Back to Behind the Paranormal
With Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL.
New skyradio.com. Believe.
Well, welcome back to Behind the Paranormal, and we're dealing with a few questions on this open line show. Up front on things related to the movie The Conjuring and whether I was involved with the case and all this business about things that go very loudly bump in the night. But here, we're answering a question from Richard in Manchester, New Hampshire, and his next question is, do you have cases where you would never go back to the house? No. I mean, I've never run into anything like that, where something chased you. Well, no, I'll correct that. I have been chased out of a house once. That was in the Bridgeport poltergeist case of 1974, where I was working with the Warrens. They had gone back to their home about 10 miles away, and I was there with the family, a reporter, a neighbor, and this sort of thing. And the thing got so powerful, I'm afraid I was partially responsible, because this is where I learned the hard way. You do not approach parasites with anger or fear. And it got so, there were four of them, got so powerful that we left the house. And fortunately, the police had cordoned off the streets because there had been tremendous crowds gathering, because this is all over the papers. And so I can say that I wanted to let the energy dissipate, and I didn't want anything to happen to the child because she had been thrown across the room when I had a physical altercation with one of these things. And that's where I started to believe these things are not spirits at all, that they're physical entities from a parallel reality, a la quantum physics. So, okay, I've been chased out once, we weren't allowed to go back because the cops threw us out the next day because the city was tied up in knots, and they blamed Ed and Lorraine Warren and I guess me too for it. But in any case, other than that, I mean, I've never had a case where it's that formidable. Again, these things only have power when you give it to them. They feed upon your negative energy, and the more negative your household is, and other things are lined up, the geotechnical factors that we talked about in the filming for the documentary, but it was not included in it. And there are all sorts of factors here. But there's nothing that I've seen that can't be controlled to at least some extent. And again, you're the one paying the mortgage, so you have some say in this. Here's another question from Richard. What do you do if you actually live in a house like that? Well, a house like that, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the film, and I don't know about the case. So, but having seen places like, having seen places where people live in poltergeist cases, I would continue to say what I just said. You bring in positive energy. You never let it get that bad. And the first thing you do when you look for an apartment or look for a new house is check it out first. When we bought our house here in Rhode Island, which we've always loved, and which seems to return the compliment in a funny way, I spent some time alone, an entire day really alone in here, just sort of taking in the energies, meditating, doing a little purification, and it's been great. That was 16 years ago, and we've been happy here ever since. So as a result, I think you have to start in that way, start at square one. If you don't feel comfortable in a place, take that seriously. I would not move into a place where I did not feel entirely comfortable. Don't say, oh, that's just me, or it's one of those things, or I'm like that. Your instincts are there for a reason. So take it seriously. So that's number one. Number two, keep it positive. If you don't, whether you're a person by yourself or whether you have a family, friends, whatever, keep it positive. Stay away from negative things. Keep the humor flowing in a good sense. I always tell my boys, always laugh, but not at each other.
Yeah. We still laugh at each other sometimes, but... Well,
you're brothers. So
yeah.
But in any case, so just keep it positive. Faith, humor, good things, love especially, of course. Stay together. Work together. All you have is each other in the end, really, and God, of course. But I would say that's a simple recipe for harmony in any family, but particularly in a house where there might be some susceptibility to this. It's a good thing to do. I remember, Ben, well, you weren't involved in this case. It was the sort of the old lady in the attic thing, just right here in Woonsocket.
Oh, that.
Yeah. And we had Shane Sorois from New Hampshire, my good friend, and also several other people who worked with me at the time, a soil engineer and a professor, electrical engineering professor from the University of Rhode Island, were with us. And this was a very interesting case where the people experienced a woman who would was living in the house in a parallel time. Now, again, I don't believe these are dead people or don't know they're dead or all this nonsense. With all due respect to those who do, I just don't believe that. Never found it to be true. If you approach it that way, that's what it's going to look like. But if you question it, you'll start to see, I believe, what it really looks like. So in any case, this house had some negative stuff. It could have been very bad situation, but the people who lived there were so positive, then they couldn't be touched by this. Now, they'd see the rocking chair going by itself sometime, but nothing really serious. So keep it positive. That's really the formula for success in a house like that. And what became of the family is Richard's final question. I have no idea. So apparently there really is a family because they've apparently been heard from, but I don't know really what's going on. Okay, so our next question is from Diana L. in Santa Barbara, California.
Alrighty, so Diana writes to us. I saw you both in that Conjuring video, and I was surprised. I have never heard of the Devil's Hour. Can you say more about it? Well,
okay.
We did do a show about it, but...
Well, yeah, we did do a show about it. It was 2 weeks ago. Check our podcast for this month.
Yeah, to make a long story short, but we'll give you a little abbreviated version on that.
Well, we didn't make a long story short in a day and a half of filming. And naturally, I never expected, I'm sure I speak for Ben, we never expected that this would be some sort of thoughtful approach to the subject of the film. Now, this Devil's Hour, and I've had a couple of people wrote and said, I never heard of that. Where'd you get that? Are you selling out to the feral ghost types? No, of course not. There is in the folklore of virtually every country a realization that at this particular time of the night, 3:15, or in the movie it's 3:07, that things can get weird. There are a number of reasons for that. As I say, in a day and a half of filming for this documentary, we went into great detail about things like the telluric current. It's an electric current, well known to science since the middle of the 19th century, that follows the sun. So if you're just before sunrise, it's going to be strong because it follows the sun. It runs along the surface of the earth, or just underneath. It runs along the surface of the sea. And this certainly teams up with our own bioelectric field to connect us with, in my opinion, the parallel realities that are around us all the time anyway. We're usually too busy or noisy to notice. And that we do notice is part of our greater selves, so to speak. Our whole philosophy of the paranormal revolves around that. And again, check the show out on our podcast page at behindtheparanormal.com to listen to that whole show. But we'll get into detail about it. So there really is such a thing as that. But of course, as anybody might point out who's experienced paranormal things, Ben, certainly people experience things at all hours of the day and night.
Well, yeah, I did say I think it's the connotation of it where people notice it more often because I was just gonna say it's quiet. People are usually asleep. There's not much activity on the streets. Well, yeah, I get most stuff I need to do done at night for some reason. But anyway. Yeah, for normal people who aren't us, it's quieter. There's less traffic outside, so it's easier to notice these things.
Yeah, it is. So a lot of it is circumstantial. So in any case, I would just say that it's a legitimate thing. It's sometimes called the witching hour and this and that, and things do happen. But I remember in the Bridgeport house with the Warrens and we were there for the better part of 2.5 days, and at night, and the whole business of getting any sleep, it was awful. And there were, things around that time would happen. But with the poltergeist case, such as I presume is depicted in this Conjuring movie, things, it'll break out and then it'll kind of wind down. It's like it needs to eat more in order to get more energy. And again, sometimes these things work in packs. In the Bridgeport house, there were 4, in my opinion. And in the following year, in this really awful case in New Haven, Connecticut, there were 6. And they had pretty much, by the time I got in there, kind of run down, but they were still pretty strong. It was very interesting. But again, you don't, I don't know. I've never seen, gross out figures, behind people's shoulders or in mirrors or anything like that. But, there are things that approximate that on a much lower scale, this sort of thing. What goes on in people's minds may be something different. because there are psychiatric factors going on here, and various things that really make every case unique. So anyway, yeah, you were surprised to see us. A lot of people didn't like the fact we were in there.
What do you mean?
Well, I guess there's some criticism that, are you selling out? What are you guys doing with those people? I mean, I can't. I worked with them in the past. What am I going to do? And the reason, as I said, we don't work together now,
I honestly I didn't know who else was in that documentary.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I mean,
I've heard of the two of them, the psychic and the ghost hunter guy. But
I have no clue who they are.
We don't know them. Anyway, so enough of that. So if you have any more questions, don't hesitate to write, but I think we'll leave that. Okay. And I'm afraid we'll probably have to cover some questions tomorrow night on that, so the other audience will hear it.
Right.
Anyway, this is from Tracy in Missoula, Montana.
Alrighty, so Tracy writes to us. I'm not good at being brief, but I've had experiences with past life flashbacks from Old World Europe, which changed my knowledge or beliefs in what eternity was, and in what terms, or in what the afterlife and humans on Earth are. What is your take on eternity and what's possible? Share if you like. Thanks. I call them flashbacks because they are more like stories of our genetic past via the spirit realms.
You want to start with that one?
Huh?
Okay, I guess not.
Well, let me just gather my thoughts on it first.
Okay, I'll start that because I'm not good at being brief either, Tracy. So, okay, well. All right, let's take this from the beginning. It has had experience with past life flashbacks from Old World Europe. Okay. Well, people have asked us many times, and we've done whole shows on this, on reincarnation. Okay. I don't believe in it in the classic sense of life, death, rebirth, life, death, rebirth, because as, Einstein, among others, proved, essentially, I think, that time doesn't exist that way. There is no past. There is no future. It's all simultaneous. And in one or another world in the multiverse, we're living every, I suppose, microsecond of our lives and everybody else's. And again, this gets into our philosophy about this.
Indeed.
So what I would say is that you have to get our framework straight before we even answer these questions. So past life flashbacks from Old World Europe. They, in our opinion, would be not flashbacks, but experiences of parallel lives in what is still Old World Europe, or to us would be Old World Europe, that are going on simultaneously. So I will leave it at that because we're coming up on another break, and we'll let Ben comment after the break. But anyway, you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on CBS New Sky Radio. We will be right back after the break. Stick with us.
Enlighten, empower, enrich. This is CBS Radio's The New Sky.
New horizons, no boundaries.
The girl works at the store, sweet Jane St. Clair, was dazzled by her smile while I shopped there. It wasn't long before I lived with her. I sang her songs while she dyed my hair. Jane, divided, but I can't decide which side I'm on. Jane, decided, oh
Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky.
Back to Behind the Paranormal
With Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL. New skyradio.com.
Welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, and believe it or not, we are back to our emails that we have finally gotten a chance to go through, sort of, and we'll see how far we can get. So let's get right back to whose email was? Tracy. For some reason, I thought that was an M, so it'd be Marcy, but that's incorrect. So Tracy's email here.
Macy. Anyway, Tracy from Missoula, Montana.
Yes.
Thank you for writing again, and we're working our way through her email. And she's talking about experiencing past life flashbacks from old world Europe, and I expressed the opinion that these are not anything like that. These are actually parallel world experiences from lives you're living right now in what to us here would be old world.
Well, it's weird because in our culture we see time as, or in the West really, time is just a singular stream.
Linear, yeah.
Yeah, like just entirely linear. I mean, that nothing's more evident than in the movie, like the trilogy of Back to the Future, where it's you go back and forth, back and forth. It's like you get on a train and just go back and forth, whereas that's really not right, because it's more like you get on a plane and you just go all over the place.
Well, there's the grandfather conundrum. You know, this problem that is the classic conundrum cited in the time paradox problem. You know, you go back in time somehow and you shoot your own grandfather, therefore how can you be born? Well, it doesn't work that way. You shoot your own grandfather, and according to most interpretations of quantum mechanics, you create another universe in which you weren't born.
Yeah.
But the one in which you were doesn't change.
Right.
Hence the multiverse. You know, billions and billions and billions and billions, probably an infinite number of all possibilities, all probabilities that really exist, and in which many of you exist.
See, Hollywood ruins a lot of things.
Well, they don't understand anything.
No,
Most
they
people
just
don't.
they just care about
I had
ratings.
seen it. You know.
Mm.
Well, in any case, so you are living, as all of us are probably, in old world Europe at some point in the multiverse, sometime, somewhere, somewhen. And Tracy mentions that this changed her knowledge or beliefs in what eternity was in terms of the afterlife and humans on this planet. Well, I should hope it would change your attitude. It should change everyone's attitude. It should really open things up. And people have asked, well, what is the nature of these other lives? Well, I think that here, in this current consciousness, they are part of our subconscious. But in those lives, take any one, and they are your conscious there, and what you here are in the subconscious there. It's really a rather elegant and open system that interacts rather beautifully, I think. And of course, the lives whatever consciousness you're in any given place or time, whatever lives, I should say, your consciousness is in touch with, kind of determines the person that you are.
Mm.
So negative people, parasitical people, people who delight in the suffering of others or think only of themselves, which is really a very primitive level, are probably in touch with their negative selves. And among these negative selves are parasites. I later came to realize with a chill that the parasite I had a physical altercation with in 1974 in that house in Bridgeport, Connecticut, was an aspect of myself, and vice versa. And I think that in the possession cases that I worked on as a seminary student and later on as a graduate student in psychology were parasites who had found the mutual bond between themselves and the person they were quote-unquote possessing. Because I always found that the possessed person had to make a conscious, even if in a very small way, agreement to bond with this other creature. Mm. And I think that that was through the mutual bond across the boundaries of the worlds where they were one. It's really rather... It's a lot spookier than the themes of some of these movies.
Like Dracula?
Yeah, it's a whole new idea, I suppose, of the vampire thing. Because that's where the idea of the vampire came from. Ancient peoples.
See, now if they could find a way to make money on it, then the idea will become popular.
That's up to our friends at Warner Brothers. I don't know. So, in any case... sure, it should change your idea, Tracy, but it's not so much an afterlife as it is just plain life. And humans on this planet are all living it. Sometimes that with an identity. Here's Tracy's next question, what is your take on eternity and what's possible? I think that what I just said explains that. All things are possible. They're not only possible, they're real in one or another parallel world. And when they impinge upon our worlds, a lot of them blend all the time. That's how we experience the progression of time, which is nothing but a function of our consciousness. It has no objective reality, because the question is, what is objective reality in this sense? So all things are possible. And there you go. And the last thing that Tracy mentions is genetic past via the spirit realms. Now, this has come up before, Ben. Remember I can't remember the guest. We were talking about. Oh no, it was not Graham Hancock. His name escapes. A famous guy. We love him. He was a great guest. But I'm having a senior moment.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
Yeah.
So.
We're talking about the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce.
Oh, yeah, that was Graham Hancock.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was.
No, he knows Graham Hancock.
Oh, right.
No, this is the younger fellow. Not the. I don't know. Whatever.
Whatever.
We were talking about that, and the whole idea of, okay, well, I look like, not me, but the guest, someone else, a third party has said that he looks like Edgar Cayce, the great psychic and seer from Virginia of the early part of the 20th century. That he was the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce, and one of the byproducts of that is that he looks like him. So I brought up the, I don't think, illogical point that doesn't DNA of your parents have something to do with what you look like?
Yeah.
Were you related to him? Apparently not. So anyway, I don't know. This whole thing of the so-called spirit realms affecting what you look like.
Well, what are spirit realms?
Well, that's the thing. Well, again, it's another name. The human mind experiences things, interprets things that it encounters in the multiverse in ways that it can understand.
Yeah.
From the limited framework and the very, very limited logic or illogic of the Western mind or any mind. And I think it comes across that the only thing this could be these could be our spirits. You see somebody who you just attended their funeral, it's their spirit. It's got to be a ghost, and you don't think that it's the person. You're having a cross experience with a parallel world where the person never died.
Yeah,
and they're doing just fine, and even if they interact with you, and there can be messages given, there can be things, but of course, very often that is parasites pretending to be people, because they know that we're naive enough to accept that interpretation. So there's a whole world behind this. And I don't like the term spirit realm simply because I don't like the term spirit realms. It reeks of this 19th century spiritualism that I think is not the right interpretation of what's really going on here, and really limits us in this incredible cosmic journey that we're always talking about. It ties us down to old-time ideas that are unbelievably limited and prevents us from seeing the real glory of what's actually going on here. So anyway, I hope that some of that answers your questions, Tracy. And thank you for writing. All right, here's another one. This is about shapeshifters. Okay, that's a big topic. And there is no name and no place and no email, but there goes.
Alrighty, so Blank writes to us. Hi, Paul and Ben. I was wondering if you know anything about shapeshifters. Do they exist? Have you seen any? And how does it work? Could Bigfoot be a shapeshifter? Many natives think so. Well,
you've been down on the reservation. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I have heard stories of skinwalkers, which are essentially a Native American version of werewolves. But Bigfoot, I haven't really heard anything about him being a shapeshifter. I mean, different tribes have different stories for what it actually is. I mean, some say he's guardian of forests. Some say that he's some interdimensional creature. Some say that he's a shapeshifter. But of course, then, why can't Bigfoot have different jobs or whatever? Well, that's the only. No. Let me explain myself.
Okay.
Let me explain myself. So, why can't it have different functions? Like certain things have different functions. Why can't different manifestations or whatever Bigfoot have different functions?
Well, we're not answering the question, but it's an interesting conversation. I have heard you, I believe, if I may say, express the opinion that I've heard from other people, that Bigfoot is really a rather sophisticated thinker and has a profound civilization, albeit a rustic lifestyle.
Well, yeah. Then, if that's true, then they can have different jobs, for lack of better words.
Yeah, or different responsibilities.
Responsibilities, yes.
Different
whatever
ways that they serve
Perhaps.
collective biosphere.
Of course, we don't really know this for certain,
No.
But hey,
But, why
it's
not?
fun. It's fun to speculate.
It's always fun to speculate. That's true.
Indeed.
But the whole notion of shapeshifters is an interesting one. Is it possible? How does it happen? What's going on here? And that tradition is present. That theme is present in just about every culture that I'm aware of. The shift, the transformation of the visual form of one being into the visual form of another being or another form. And, of course, looking at the multiverse, as we've been discussing, that is entirely possible. And I think that there certainly are species I've run into in my travels who do not exist in our conscious world, but exist in neighboring worlds of the multiverse, if you will. And they seem very able to take different forms or to communicate to us different forms. There is a connection I have who has supposedly been involved with alien research on the level of official level. And they said that the various tissue that supposedly was taken from alien bodies after certain crashes of alleged UFOs would become whatever the scientists wanted it to be. They would, if one scientist interpreted, say, the vision, not the vision, but the tissue under a microscope or in certain tests or whatever, as animal, it would be animal. If someone else came in at a different time and interpreted it as vegetable or neither, that's what it would appear to be. It would do, supposedly, whatever people expected it to do. And that might be some kind of key to what's going on in the multiverse. But we'll have to get back to that. We're taking another break. And you're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on CBS News Sky Radio. Stick with us.
Enlighten, empower, enrich. This is CBS Radio's The New Sky.
New horizons, no boundaries.
Travelers on the open road. Here's to the dreamers in the bar.
Psychic Radio is now CBS Radio's The Sky.
Back to Behind the Paranormal.
With Paul and Ben Eno. Call now 248-545-SOUL.
New skyradio.com. Believe.
Welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, and we are talking about Bigfoot and shapeshifters right here
That's
on
it.
CBS
We're
New
going
Sky.
to finish up Mr. Anonymous's question on shapeshifters. So yes, I personally think it exists in some form because there was always a reason for all points in folklore. Some story or something, some human experience started these things, and it's often pretty amazing, almost frighteningly amazing how far back many of these stories go. Stories told around campfires and Cro-Magnon days or whatever might certainly descend to us through the storyteller, who before the days of books and television was certainly the be-all and end-all as far as information was concerned.
Oh, yeah.
So in any case, these things, there's always a reason for these beliefs, and I think that given the multiversal realities involved, you certainly could have something that is interpreted as shape-shifting by one or another creature. Oh, here we go back to the Devil's Hour. This is from Henry in Sewickley, Pennsylvania.
Alrighty, hi Paul and Ben. I have been a fan of yours for a long time, and I found your approach to the paranormal very refreshing. So I was amazed to see you both in that video about the Devil's Hour for The Conjuring. You were the most sensible of the investigators they interviewed, but the rest of it looked like the same old nonsense.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen the film, and
well, I mean, there's a very simple answer to this. It's what sells.
Well, that's it. That's it. Yeah,
It's what sells.
No, and you sum it right up there. Yeah, I mean, people aren't interested. I mean, if they want to see us talking about what we really talk about, they'll tune into this show, or they'll go to some
podcasts or whatever.
This sort of thing. And we went over this with Lloyd Orbach, a renowned parapsychologist. We don't agree with all things on, but whom we respect a great deal, like personally, and have had on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
Lloyd agrees with us that he's not in a lot of TV documentaries because people don't want to hear the intelligent approach to this.
No.
They want to be stimulated. That they want to hear the campfire stuff. They want to be scared.
It's entertainment.
It's entertainment. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
but
because it's how these people make money.
Yeah, and so I'm sure that The Conjuring, it's gotten some pretty good reviews. I'll probably see it. Not really, oddly enough, despite our work, I'm not too interested in that sort of a themed movie. However, hey, I mean, it's that's what sells, as Ben says, and people are entertained by it. But people should take it as entertainment. They shouldn't take it as fact. Ultimately, and even today, with all we've been through in this society, with the truth and stretching the truth and out-and-out lies, people believe whatever they see in print, or they believe whatever they see on the screen.
Yeah.
Is that true? You're the media expert.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen some really funny. Well, they're terrifying experiments, but the whole point is that they're jokes you play on people, like on forum posts and stuff. My friend told me about this one where it's like someone went on a forum and said, hey, you want to know how you can clean your iPhone? Like, throw it in your microwave for 25 seconds. And people did it. Do you know what that does? It literally makes your microwave blow up.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. There was another one that was like, oh, yeah, if you get an ice-cold glass.
Tell people this.
Get a warm glass, pour some ice-cold water in it. What that does is...
cracks the glass.
Yes. And
I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about it in school, and it's, and I went home. My grandmother had a fit. I put boiling water. See, it's really got to be extreme. I put boiling water in a tall glass.
Cold. It has to be cold. The glass has to be cold.
Or whatever.
Yes.
I put ice water in the glass, and that's right. I put ice water in the glass. Thank you. It's almost as if you were there. Must be ancestral memory. And I dumped it out and immediately put boiling water from the tea kettle in there, and kablooey. Oh,
yeah. People are stupid because someone was like, oh yeah, this is such a relaxing thing to do, I love doing it, and then people tried it and just cut up their hands. Like,
well, no, it didn't like blow up, it just there was a big crack appeared.
Some of these people, it blew up in their hands.
Yeah. Oh really? Well,
yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So it just goes to show that you can't trust anything you see on the screen, you have to look at it from 20 different points of view, and maybe you'll find a wee bit of truth in it, but more than likely you won't, because you got to remember, it's all for entertainment.
Yeah,
it's all for ratings.
And that's fine.
It's all for money.
Just don't take it too hard. And
No,
take it too
I mean,
seriously.
look at the History Channel.
Yeah.
Like that. It's not for learning anymore. It's all for profit now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really watch television.
News isn't the news anymore because it's all for profit now.
Well, we had the Rhode Island Press Association. I used to organize some of the conferences because I have a long career in journalism. I've done a lot with the organized press associations. And we had a workshop one time, and this is in 1980 something, is LITE, L-I-T-E, the future of news.
Which it was.
And
or
it
is.
certainly seems to have been the case.
Well, it's not even that. It's like news now is news before, like in the 60s, like before 60 Minutes came on, so prior to 1968, you had news departments of like big network studios was considered a loss leader. Like they lost money on the news studios. So what did they do? They created packaged entertainment. So
which is very disconcerting.
That's what it is. That's why there's exposés and you hear all this crap about stars and that nobody cares about. Some people care about it, but before nobody cared about that.
Well, in any case, relating that to our topic, the same thing has happened in the paranormal, I suppose.
Yes.
If it ever didn't happen, LITE. Now, people don't want to see what's behind the paranormal, or some people do. That's our audience. So we love every one of them because they tend to be intelligent and thinking people. If people want to go behind and see what's really going on.
I feel like my goal of doing that whole project was to at least get our point of view out there.
Yes, exactly. Somebody might see our name, look us up, come to our website, read the articles, and say, aha, boy, I never saw this approach before, and maybe there's something to this. So that's why we did that, and we had fun doing it. There was a great crew from Rare Icons in New York City who was doing the filming, and we had a great time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so anyway, I guess we're just about done. So check out my books on Barnes & Noble e-reader and Amazon Kindle, and because so many have requested it, we are about to embark on an audiobook project as soon as we have the time for my book and for the one Ben and I are currently working on. Stay tuned for more news on that.
So visit our show website, BehindTheParanormal.com, where you can find over 500 free podcasts of all our past shows. Also, check out our website at www.newenglandghosts.com, where you can find our case studies, photos, and along with articles by my dad.
And if you buy my books on either of those sites, you will help us keep those podcasts free. And also on our site, you'll find direct links to several charities that Ben and I have adopted, including USA Cares and Canadian Veterans Advocacy.
So many thanks to our producer, Brendan Jackson. And next week, we welcome former Indian Army Captain Jesse Kalsi. Yeah, Kalsi. Yeah, I don't know. I have trouble with Indian names. For a discussion of astronumerology. So send in your questions to Paul at BehindTheParanormal.com or use the question form at BehindTheParanormal.com.
In the meantime, tune into our Boston Providence Drive Time show on WOON 1240 AM and ONWorldwide.com at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 Pacific, every Monday. We'll leave you this evening with a thought from American author Cami Garcia, quote, "The right thing and the easy thing are never the same," unquote. I'm Paul Eno.
And I'm Ben Eno, and thanks for joining us on our great cosmic journey, and we shall see you next time.